You should have handled this quietly, Lena. The room went still after Vanessa Cole slid the envelope across the glass conference table. 12 executives avoided eye contact. 2 hours earlier, Lena Wagner had simply requested access to 5 years of compensation records. Now the company's legal department was involved. HR was panicking, and her husband had texted her 3 times in a row, "Don't destroy our life over your pride." Lena stared at the men who had praised her loyalty while quietly paying her less than every junior male strategist she had trained herself. Then she opened her laptop. "Actually," she said softly, "I haven't even shown you the worst part yet. If you've ever been betrayed by people who smiled to your face while profiting from your silence, this story will hit harder than you expect, and by the end, you may never apologize for knowing your worth again." Lena Wagner's life looked beautiful from the outside, the kind of beautiful people slowed down to stare at while driving through expensive suburban neighborhoods at Christmas. The kind with white stone walkways, soft golden porch lights, and carefully arranged wreaths hanging on double black doors. The kind people envied online. Every morning, Lena woke up at 5:30 before Brady. She made coffee, answered overnight emails from Whitmore and Hale Consulting, and packed a lunch she usually forgot to eat by noon. By 7, she was already dressed in neutral-toned designer clothing that looked effortless because she spent hours trying to make herself look like a woman who wasn't exhausted. Brady used to kiss her forehead before leaving. Lately, he barely looked at her. "You working late again?" he asked one Thursday morning, scrolling through his phone while she stood at the kitchen island reviewing a client presentation. "Probably," Lena answered quietly. Brady smirked without looking up. "Jesus, that company owns your soul." She forced a small laugh. That was how most conversations worked now. Small cuts disguised as jokes. Tiny humiliations she swallowed because confronting them always became another argument she was too tired to survive. By the time Lena arrived at Whitmore and Hale's downtown Chicago office, she already felt behind. The building itself looked like power. Glass walls, marble floors, men in $1,000 suits speaking too loudly into Bluetooth headsets, women balancing impossible expectations while pretending not to sweat under pressure. Lena had worked there for almost 6 years. She knew every client crisis before executives did. She fixed presentations before meetings exploded. She stayed late when entire departments failed to prepare. And yet somehow every year someone else got promoted ahead of her. Usually a man she had personally trained. "Morning, Lena." Ethan Brooks walked beside her carrying coffee and confidence, like he'd been born entitled to both. "Morning. You saved the Reynolds account yet?" he joked. She smiled weakly. "Working on it." "You always do." That part was true. She always did. Inside the Monday strategy meeting, Lena sat halfway down the table while senior leadership discussed expansion forecasts. 3 times she offered solutions, 3 times they ignored her until a man repeated the same idea louder. Then everyone nodded. "Excellent point, Ethan." Lena stared down at her notes. Again, it happened so often she almost questioned whether she imagined it. After the meeting, Ethan caught up with her near the elevators. "For what it's worth," he said awkwardly, "that was your idea in there." She gave a tired smile. "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. It hadn't been fine for years. The worst part wasn't even the disrespect anymore. It was how normal it had become. That night, Lena arrived home after 8. The house was glowing with warm lights, but the second she walked inside, tension wrapped around her throat. Brady sat at the dining table with his laptop open, bills spread everywhere. "You forgot the electric payment again," he said without greeting her. Lena blinked. "I transferred money Monday. Not enough." She dropped her purse slowly. "I paid the mortgage this month, too." And his tone sharpened instantly. "You make good money, Lena. I shouldn't have to stress over every little thing." "Little thing!" She nearly laughed. 3 years earlier, Brady's commercial real estate business had nearly collapsed after a disastrous investment deal. Lena had quietly drained part of her retirement savings to help keep them afloat. She never mentioned it afterward, not once. Meanwhile, Brady acted like paying utilities was some unbearable sacrifice. "I'm trying," she said softly. Brady leaned back in his chair. "That's the problem. You're always trying instead of thinking strategically." The words stung more than she expected, because once upon a time Brady had admired her ambition. Now he spoke to her like she was an employee disappointing him. Later that night, Lena stood alone in their bathroom, removing makeup under bright white lights that made her look older than 34. Not old, just tired, emotionally tired. The kind of tired sleep couldn't fix. Her phone buzzed. A late-night email from Whitmore and Hale. Subject compensation planning forecasts. Lena sighed. Of course. She carried the phone back to bed while Brady slept beside her, one arm thrown carelessly across expensive sheets she had probably paid for. Opening the attachment, she expected budget projections. Instead, she found salary ranges. At first, she barely reacted. Numbers, charts, department allocations. Then she froze. Her own name sat halfway down the spreadsheet. Senior Operations Strategist Lena Wagner. Her eyes moved across the row automatically. Base salary, bonus percentage, annual compensation growth. Then lower on the page, Ethan Brooks. Her stomach tightened. She blinked once, twice. No, that couldn't be right. Ethan made nearly $30,000 more than her. Lena sat upright immediately. Another name, then another. 3 male strategists. All younger, all less experienced, every single one making significantly more. Her heartbeat became violent. There had to be context missing. Different divisions, maybe. Different performance ratings, hands trembling, she searched further across the spreadsheet until she reached annual evaluation metrics and stopped breathing. Her performance scores were the highest in the department, not close. Highest. A strange buzzing filled her ears. Suddenly, memories started replaying in painful flashes. Vanessa Cole smiling sympathetically last year. We just don't have room in the budget right now. The promotion she lost to a man who asked Lena for help weekly. The raises delayed. The compliments. The endless compliments. You're so valuable, Lena. You're such a team player. We trust you with everything. 5 years. 5 years of loyalty. 5 years of unpaid emotional labor. 5 years of being grateful. A sound beside her startled her. Brady shifted awake slightly. You coming to bed, he mumbled. Lena stared at the glowing spreadsheet. Brady, Did you ever feel like... Her voice cracked unexpectedly. Like people only value you when you make things easier for them. He opened one eye, annoyed already. What are you talking about? She swallowed hard. I think I'm being underpaid. Brady exhaled sharply through his nose like she'd interrupted something important. Lena, I'm serious. You make 6 figures. That's not the point. He rolled onto his back dramatically. Then what is the point? Her chest tightened. The men under me make more than I do. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Brady laughed softly. Actually laughed. You're upset over that. Lena stared at him. I train them. So they shouldn't be making more than me. Brady rubbed his face impatiently. Men negotiate harder. The words hit her like cold water. She has higher performance metrics than all of them combined. She wanted to scream. Instead, she whispered, You really think that's normal? I think this is why companies hesitate to promote emotional women. The room went completely still. Lena looked at her husband like she didn't recognize him. But maybe this wasn't new. Maybe she was only hearing clearly for the first time. Brady sat up slightly. Don't turn yourself into one of those bitter women who thinks everything is sexism because life isn't fair. Bitter women! As if pain became embarrassing the second a woman spoke it out loud. Lena lowered her eyes slowly back to the spreadsheet, glowing in the dark. And for the first time in years, gratitude stopped feeling noble. It started feeling dangerous. Then her eyes caught something else at the bottom of the document. A locked tab labeled Executive Compensation Adjustment Notes. Her pulse slowed. Very slowly, Lena clicked it open. The password protection on the tab was weak, embarrassingly weak. Lena stared at the blinking cursor for 3 seconds before typing the company's default budgeting code she'd seen assistants use dozens of times before, UH2021. The file opened instantly and ruined her marriage before she even realized it. At first, nothing made sense. Rows of executive notes, compensation adjustments, internal recommendations, approval chains. Then she saw her own name. Lena Wagner Compensation Review Notes. Her throat tightened. A comment sat beside her salary history. High performance, but emotionally sensitive under pressure. Another line underneath not considered leadership ready for executive-facing expansion role. Lena frowned automatically. That wasn't true. Every major client escalation in the last 3 years had been handed to her specifically because she performed well under pressure. There were more notes: reliable, unlikely to leave company due to personality profile. Her stomach dropped. Personality profile, who wrote this? Then she saw the approval initials, V.C. Vanessa Cole. The room suddenly felt too small. Lena kept scrolling. Another note appeared from 2 years earlier. Recommend delaying compensation increase until next fiscal cycle. Employee demonstrates loyalty despite limited upward movement. Loyalty. The word made her physically nauseous now, like they had turned her kindness into a business strategy. Beside her, Brady slept peacefully. Lena looked at him for a long moment. 5 years. 5 years of skipped vacations because work needed her. 5 years of fixing disasters executives created. 5 years of accepting less because she believed hard work would eventually speak for itself. But hard work didn't speak in places like Whitmore and Hale. Power did, and men protected each other with it. She barely slept that night. By morning, her chest felt hollowed out. At work, everything looked different. The polished hallways, the fake smiles, the expensive perfume floating through elevators, the men joking loudly near conference rooms. Lena sat at her desk watching Ethan Brooks laugh with 2 associates while sipping coffee she knew he'd probably expense to the company card without consequence. $30,000 more. The number repeated in her head like a migraine. By noon, she couldn't stand it anymore. She walked toward Ethan's office before she could lose her nerve. "Hey," she said quietly from the doorway. Ethan looked up immediately. "Lena, you okay?" No, her honesty startled both of them. He slowly sat back in his chair. "What happened?" Lena closed the office door behind her. "I saw the compensation forecast file." The color drained from Ethan's face so fast it almost frightened her. "Oh." That single syllable confirmed everything. Lena folded her arms tightly across herself. "You knew." "Lena, you knew." "It's not like that." "Then explain it to me." Ethan rubbed his jaw nervously. "I thought you already knew." Her eyes burned instantly. Not because of the money, because of humiliation, because apparently everyone around her had assumed she willingly accepted being undervalued. "I trained you," she whispered. Ethan looked miserable now. "I know. You asked me for help almost every day your first year. I know, and you make more than me." Silence. Thick, ugly. Finally, Ethan exhaled heavily. "Look, people talk okay, everyone knows. Vanessa favors certain candidates, certain male candidates." His eyes flicked away. That answer hurt worse. Lena laughed once under her breath, but there was no humor in it. "Oh my God, Lena, I swear I didn't feel good about it, but you accepted it." His expression hardened slightly now, defensive instinct taking over. "What was I supposed to do? Refuse the raise?" She stared at him and realized something horrifying. Most people would always choose comfort over fairness if unfairness benefited them personally. Even good people, especially good people, because they knew how to justify it. "I need some air," she muttered. Lena, but she was already gone. By the time she reached the parking garage beneath the building, her hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped her phone. Concrete walls surrounded her in cold gray silence. For a second she thought she might throw up. Instead, she sat inside her car and gripped the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. Then finally, she cried. Not gracefully, not quietly. Years of humiliation cracked open all at once. All the times she smiled through disrespect. All the times Brady told her she was overreacting. All the times she made herself smaller to avoid conflict. Tears blurred her vision as she grabbed her phone and called him. Brady answered on the 4th ring. "What?" The irritation in his voice nearly made her hang up immediately. "I saw the salary records." A pause. Then, "Okay." Lena stared ahead blankly. "The men on my team make more than me." Another pause. Then Brady sighed dramatically. "Jesus Christ, are you still on this?" Her mouth opened slightly. "Still on this." "You're acting emotional. I'm acting emotional because I've been lied to for years." "No," Brady snapped. "You're emotional because you need everything to validate your ego." That hit deep. Brady always knew where to aim. "You don't understand," Lena whispered. "I understand perfectly. Men negotiate harder. Men take bigger risks. That's corporate America. They have lower performance scores than me. So what? The coldness in his tone stunned her. So what, Lena, this is exactly why women struggle in leadership positions sometimes. Her entire body went still. You hear one uncomfortable thing and suddenly it's a personal attack. I dedicated years to that company, and they pay you well. Not equally. Oh my God. Brady laughed under his breath. Actually laughed. You sound like one of those angry internet feminists right now. The sentence sliced straight through her, not because she cared about the insult, because of how easily he dismissed her pain, as if fairness itself was embarrassing. Lena pressed trembling fingers against her forehead. I thought you'd support me. Brady's voice softened slightly now, but somehow that felt worse. I am supporting you. I'm trying to stop you from sabotaging your own life over emotions. Emotions. Such a convenient word men used whenever women became inconvenient. A black SUV pulled into the garage nearby, headlights briefly flooding her windshield. Lena closed her eyes. I have to go, good Brady muttered. And Lena. She said nothing. Don't become one of those bitter women who destroy everything because they need someone to blame. The call ended. Lena sat motionless afterward. The silence inside the car felt deafening. Then her phone buzzed again, a notification from her synced iPad. At first she almost ignored it, then she noticed the sender name, Vanessa Cole. Her pulse slowed dangerously. The preview only showed one sentence. Brady, she's starting to ask questions. Lena stopped breathing. Very slowly she opened the full email thread, and the first thing she saw was a message time-stamped 11 months earlier, from Brady. I can calm her down, just give me time. Lena barely remembered driving home. The email thread sat in her mind like shattered glass. I can calm her down, just give me time. She replayed the sentence over and over while Chicago blurred past her windshield in streaks of gray rain and red brake lights. Not once, not twice. There were dozens of emails between Brady and Vanessa. Some looked professional enough on the surface. Others didn't. She's getting too ambitious lately. Don't worry, she trusts me. Delay the review another quarter. Every message made her feel smaller. Not because Brady cheated, not yet, because he participated, because the one person who was supposed to protect her had apparently helped manage her into silence. By the time she reached home, Brady was already dressed for dinner. Navy blazer, perfect hair, the polished image of a successful suburban husband. You're late, he said casually, while adjusting his watch. Lena stared at him. How long have you known Vanessa? Brady paused, only half a second. From your company events, that's it. His expression hardened slightly. What's with the interrogation? She almost laughed. Interrogation, as if she were the problem. We're going to your parents' house, Brady continued. Please don't start drama tonight. The audacity of that sentence nearly took her breath away, but Lena said nothing. For the first time in years, silence wasn't submission, it was observation. Richard and Patricia Wagner lived in one of those enormous North Shore homes built to impress people who already had too much money. Tall white columns, circular driveway, a dining room bigger than Lena's childhood apartment. The second they walked inside, Patricia air-kissed Lena's cheek. You look exhausted, sweetheart, not concern. Criticism disguised as concern. Lena forced a smile. Long week. Well, Patricia sighed dramatically. That's what happens when women try to do everything. Brady chuckled softly beside her. Lena noticed it immediately. That tiny laugh, that automatic alignment, like he and his mother were on the same team. Dinner was already underway when Richard started talking politics over expensive wine. The problem with corporations now, he announced loudly, is everyone thinks they're oppressed. Brady smirked into his glass. Patricia nodded eagerly. Richard continued. Nobody wants accountability anymore, especially women in offices. Lena felt heat crawl slowly up her neck. Dad Brady said with fake amusement, Don't get started. No, seriously. Richard pointed his fork carelessly. Every time some woman doesn't get promoted, suddenly it's discrimination. Everyone laughed lightly. Everyone except Lena. Her chest tightened so hard it hurt, because now she understood. Brady had told them. Maybe not details, but enough. Enough for them to mock her before she even opened her mouth. Patricia dabbed her lips delicately with a napkin. Smart women know when to stay quiet, she said. That's how marriages survive. Lena looked directly at Brady. He didn't defend her, didn't even look uncomfortable. Instead, he took another sip of wine like this was normal dinner conversation, like humiliating his wife publicly was harmless entertainment. You know what destroys relationships, Richard added smugly. Resentment. Women get resentful when they compare themselves to men instead of appreciating what they already have. Lena's hands clenched beneath the table, appreciating what they already have. The beautiful house she partially financed, the social status she helped Brady maintain, the emotional labor nobody counted because women were expected to provide it endlessly and gracefully. Then the front doors opened. Conversation shifted immediately. Harold Whitmore walked into the dining room smiling like a politician entering a fundraiser. Tall, silver-haired, expensive, chairman of Whitmore and Hale Consulting, and apparently close enough to the Wagner family to attend private dinners. Lena froze. Harold Richard stood immediately. Perfect timing. Harold shook hands around the table before stopping beside Lena. Lena Wagner, he said warmly, one of the hardest working women in our company. The sentence almost made her physically ill. Hard-working women, not brilliant, not leadership material, not invaluable, just hard-working, useful, reliable, replaceable. Thank you, Lena answered quietly. Harold smiled at Brady next. Your wife keeps that place running. Brady wrapped an arm casually around Lena's chair. She takes work too seriously sometimes. Everyone laughed again. Lena felt herself disappearing inside the room, not dramatically, not loudly, just slowly, like years of tiny humiliations had finally hollowed her out completely. Dinner continued around her in expensive voices and polished cruelty, business deals, golf stories, vacation homes. Meanwhile, Lena sat silently connecting pieces she never wanted to see clearly before. Brady knew Harold, Richard knew Harold, Vanessa knew Brady, and somehow Lena had spent years believing her stalled career was simply bad luck. No, this was a system, a private network of power protecting itself, and she had been naive enough to think loyalty mattered inside it. Later that evening, Patricia cornered Lena near the kitchen while dessert was being served. You seem tense, she said softly. I'm tired. Patricia lowered her voice. Listen to me carefully, sweetheart. Lena already hated what was coming. Men care deeply about respect. If Brady feels criticized at home eventually, he'll stop seeing you as a partner. The manipulation was so elegant it almost impressed her. Everything always came back to protecting men's comfort, even when women were bleeding emotionally. I'm not criticizing him, Lena replied carefully. Patricia gave her a pitying smile. Honey, men don't leave because of one big fight. They leave because women make them feel inadequate over time. There it was, the threat beneath the advice. Behave. Stay pleasant, stay grateful, or lose everything. Lena suddenly realized something terrifying. She had spent years managing everyone else's emotions while nobody cared about hers at all. Not really. By 10:30, she finally told Brady she wanted to leave. On the drive home, rain hammered softly against the windshield. Brady drove one-handed while checking emails at stoplights. Lena stared out the passenger window. You embarrassed me tonight, Brady said suddenly. She turned slowly toward him. What? You sat there looking miserable the entire dinner. Lena laughed once in disbelief. You all mocked me for an hour. Oh my God. Brady shook his head impatiently. Nobody mocked you. You literally laughed while your father made jokes about women being underpaid, because he was joking. That doesn't make it okay. Brady gripped the steering wheel harder now. This is what I mean. You take everything personally. The exhaustion in her chest deepened. How long have you been talking to Vanessa? Brady's jaw tightened instantly. Seriously, answer me. She works at your company, Lena. That's not what I asked. For a second, real anger flashed across his face. Then it disappeared behind controlled calm. You're spiraling. There it was again, that wordless implication that her emotions made her irrational. Lena looked at him carefully, and for the first time Brady didn't feel emotionally safe anymore. He felt strategic. When they got home, Brady went upstairs without another word. But Lena stayed downstairs in the dark living room, pretending to check emails, while she listened to the house settle into silence. Around midnight, footsteps crossed the second floor, then descended quietly. Lena's pulse slowed. She watched Brady walk into the kitchen carrying his phone. He didn't know she was there. His voice dropped low immediately. She's starting to suspect things. Vanessa, It had to be Vanessa. Lena stood frozen behind the darkened doorway. Brady leaned against the counter casually. No, she saw some payroll documents. A pause. Then he laughed softly. Coldly. No. Lena doesn't have the stomach to actually fight back. The words hit harder than the affair ever could have. Because he sounded certain. Certain she would stay small. Certain she would stay kind. Certain she would stay manageable. Lena pressed trembling fingers against her mouth to stop herself from making a sound. And for the first time in her marriage, she stopped wanting Brady to love her back. After that night, Lena stopped sleeping beside Brady. Technically, she still lay in the same bed, but emotionally, something had moved miles away. She became quieter at home. Not emotional, not explosive, just observant, and that unsettled Brady more than tears ever would have. You've been weird lately, he said 3 mornings later, while knotting his tie in their bathroom mirror. Lena applied mascara carefully. Maybe I'm tired. You're cold. She almost laughed at the irony. Cold! After years of exhausting herself trying to make him comfortable. Brady watched her through the reflection. If this is still about work, it's not just about work. That shut him up for exactly 2 seconds. Then what is it about Lena met his eyes in the mirror? I think you already know. For a brief moment, something flickered across Brady's face. Fear. But it vanished almost instantly. You're imagining things, he said smoothly. Gaslighting worked best when delivered calmly. That was Brady's specialty, making her doubt reality while sounding reasonable. Lena grabbed her purse without another word and walked out first. At Whitmore and Hale, the atmosphere felt different now. Not openly hostile. Worse. Overly careful. Coworkers lowered their voices when she walked by. Conversations paused half a second too long. Even smiles felt rehearsed. Like people sensed something shifting beneath the surface, but didn't know whether to fear it yet. Around noon, Lena received a calendar notification. Vanessa Cole check-in meeting. Of course. The office on the 32nd floor looked exactly like Vanessa herself. Elegant, minimal, expensive in a way that whispered power instead of screaming it. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooked the Chicago skyline beneath heavy gray clouds. Vanessa stood near the window holding a tablet when Lena entered. Lena, she said warmly. Come in, too warmly. Lena sat carefully across from her. Vanessa smiled with polished concern. I wanted to touch base because some people mentioned you seemed distressed lately. Distressed. Corporate language for emotionally inconvenient. I'm fine, Lena answered calmly. Vanessa tilted her head sympathetically. You know we value you tremendously here. Lena nearly felt dizzy hearing the word value now. Vanessa continued smoothly, but leadership roles require emotional resilience under pressure. There it was again, the narrative. Not underpaid, not exploited, just emotional. Lena folded her hands together. I reviewed some compensation projections recently. A pause, small, controlled. But Lena noticed it. Vanessa recovered instantly. Ah, you never mentioned I was being paid significantly less than my male peers. Vanessa leaned back gracefully. Compensation structures are complex. That's not an answer, Vanessa said softly. Comparing salaries without context can create unnecessary resentment. Unnecessary resentment. The phrase made Lena's stomach twist, because women were expected to tolerate unfairness gracefully. The second they reacted, the reaction became the problem. My performance scores were higher than theirs, Lena replied quietly. Vanessa smiled sadly now, and somehow that expression felt crueler than open hostility. Performance isn't the only factor leadership considers. Then what is? Vanessa held her gaze. Executive presence, strategic confidence, relationship management, translation. Men who sounded powerful got rewarded. Women who kept companies functioning quietly got used until they broke. Lena stood slowly. I see. Vanessa's voice softened further. I'd hate to see frustration damage the incredible reputation you've built here. A warning disguised as concern. Lena understood perfectly now. By the time she returned to her desk, her chest felt numb. Ethan approached carefully an hour later. You okay, no? He winced slightly. What happened? She basically implied I'm too emotional for leadership, Ethan muttered under his breath. Jesus. Lena looked at him sharply. What? He hesitated, then immediately regretted speaking. Nothing. No, Say it. Ethan glanced around before lowering his voice. There were rumors. Her stomach tightened instantly. What rumors? That Vanessa didn't think you had executive temperament. Lena stared at him. Executive temperament. She said clients trusted you, but leadership questioned whether you could command authority. Authority! Lena almost laughed. She had spent years cleaning up disasters caused by men with authority. And somehow you all believed that Ethan looked uncomfortable now. She controls promotions, Lena, so everybody just accepted it. You don't understand how politics work at this level. No, Lena said quietly. I'm starting to understand perfectly. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. There's something else. Lena waited. His voice dropped further. People noticed Brady and Vanessa seemed close at events. The air left Lena's lungs slowly. How close? I don't know, Ethan said quickly. Maybe nothing, but people talked. Lena nodded once, calmly, too calmly. That frightened Ethan more than anger would have. That evening, Brady texted around 6. Client dinner. Don't wait up. Lena stared at the message for a long time. Then something inside her finally snapped into place. Not emotionally, strategically. At 7:30, she parked across the street from Brady's downtown office building. Rain drizzled softly against the windshield, while city lights blurred across wet pavement. At 8:12 p.m., Brady exited the building. Not alone. Vanessa walked beside him. Lena's heartbeat slowed unnaturally. They looked comfortable together. Easy. Vanessa laughed at something Brady said and touched his arm lightly. Not professional. Never professional. Lena gripped the steering wheel tighter. Maybe this still wasn't what it looked like. Maybe she wanted to be wrong desperately enough to invent excuses. Then Brady opened the passenger door for Vanessa, the same small gentleman gesture he hadn't shown Lena in years. Something deep inside her cracked quietly. She followed them through downtown traffic from a careful distance. Every red light felt surreal. Every turn made reality harder to deny. Finally, Brady's car stopped outside a luxury high-rise overlooking the river. Vanessa stepped out first. Brady followed. Neither looked rushed. Neither looked guilty. Lena parked half a block away beneath flickering streetlights and watched them disappear into the building lobby together. Her chest hurt so badly she pressed a hand against it instinctively. Still part of her hoped. Maybe separate apartments. Maybe business meeting. Maybe. 20 minutes later, lights illuminated a corner penthouse balcony high above the city, and then Lena saw them. Brady stepped outside holding a drink. Vanessa followed. He touched her waist casually, intimately, like muscle memory. Lena stopped breathing. The rain intensified around her car in soft, violent waves. Up above, Brady leaned down and kissed Vanessa slowly, beneath warm golden balcony lights. No hesitation, no guilt, no conflict. Like this had been happening for a very long time. Lena stared upward while the entire city seemed to disappear into silence around her. 5 years. 5 years of loyalty. 5 years of being told she was too emotional, too sensitive, too demanding. Meanwhile, the man destroying her confidence every day had been sleeping with the woman helping underpay her. The cruelty of it felt almost artistic. Lena expected herself to cry. Instead, nothing. No screaming, no sobbing, just stillness. Terrifying stillness, because heartbreak was one thing. But humiliation changed people differently. A memory surfaced suddenly, 3 years earlier. Lena standing in their kitchen asking Brady if he still loved her. Brady laughing softly before pulling her into his arms. God, Lena, you overthink everything. She remembered apologizing afterward, apologizing for needing reassurance from her own husband. Now she sat alone in the rain, realizing Brady had probably gone to Vanessa's bed immediately afterward. A sharp sound escaped her throat unexpectedly. Not a cry, a laugh, small, broken, disbelieving. She finally understood why Brady always wanted her insecure. Confident women asked questions. Confident women left. Confident women didn't tolerate being emotionally managed. Up above, Brady kissed Vanessa again. And for the first time in her marriage, Lena stopped wondering how to save the relationship. She started wondering how much damage she could survive once she stopped protecting everyone else. Lena didn't confront Brady that night. That was the first thing that frightened her. Not the affair, not the lies. The calm. She drove home through midnight rain feeling strangely detached from her own body, like she was watching someone else's marriage collapse from very far away. By the time Brady came home after 1 in the morning, Lena was sitting in the dark living room with her laptop open. He startled slightly when he saw her awake. "You scared me." She looked up slowly. "How was your client dinner?" Brady loosened his tie casually. "Long, successful, I guess." "Lie." The word echoed silently through her chest, but Lena only nodded and returned her attention to the screen. Brady studied her carefully. "You okay?" The performance almost impressed her. The gentle voice, the concerned husband routine. A week ago she would have melted under it. Now she saw mechanics instead of love. "I'm tired," she answered. Brady relaxed instantly, because tired women were manageable. "Don't stay up too late," he said softly, before heading upstairs. Lena listened to his footsteps disappear. Then she opened another folder. For the next 3 hours, she went through everything: emails, performance evaluations, compensation histories, promotion recommendations. At first, the evidence looked subtle: tiny language patterns, repeated delays, leadership concerns, emotional sensitivity, not executive-facing. But when she lined the documents beside male employee records, the pattern became undeniable. Men with lower performance scores received aggressive salary increases. Men with weaker client retention got promoted faster. Men described as assertive behaved almost identically to women labeled difficult. Lena's pulse remained eerily steady now, like shock had burned away panic entirely. Then she found the document that finally shattered something inside her. Internal Promotion Review, confidential, her own file. Vanessa's notes sat beneath executive comments. Lena Wagner remains highly productive, but derives significant identity stability from workplace validation. Lena froze. What kind of language was that? This wasn't performance analysis. This was psychological profiling. Another note underneath: unlikely to pursue external opportunities due to marital dependency structure and conflict-avoidant personality traits. Her mouth slowly opened. Marital dependency structure. Vanessa knew things about her marriage. Personal things. Things Lena never disclosed professionally. Suddenly, another memory surfaced. A company gala 8 months earlier. Vanessa touching Lena's arm gently near the bar. "You should really prioritize self-care more. Brady worries about how hard you push yourself." At the time, Lena thought it sounded kind. Now it sounded invasive, calculated. Her breathing became shallow. She opened the Brady-Vanessa email chain again. This time she searched specific words. Lena, promotion, sensitive, marriage. The results made her physically ill. She's easier to manage when she feels guilty. Don't push her too hard at once. She'll stay loyal if she thinks stability is at risk. Lena covered her mouth instantly. The room tilted slightly. This wasn't just cheating. This was collaboration. Emotional manipulation so coordinated it barely felt human anymore. Brady had handed pieces of her emotional life to the woman controlling her career, every insecurity, every fear, every vulnerable moment she trusted him with. Weaponized. By sunrise, Lena felt hollow. Not broken, past broken. Something colder. She called in sick for the first time in almost 4 years. Brady came downstairs around 7:30 looking refreshed and expensive in charcoal gray. "You staying home? I'm not feeling well." He frowned slightly, but not with concern. With inconvenience. "You have the Preston review meeting today." "I know." "You can't just disappear because you're stressed." Lena stared at him quietly. Stress, such a small word for betrayal. Brady poured coffee before glancing toward her laptop. "You working on something?" "No." "Too fast." His eyes narrowed briefly. Then his phone buzzed. Lena noticed the flicker immediately. The quick downward glance. The almost invisible shift in posture. Vanessa. It had to be Vanessa. "You're acting weird," Brady said carefully. Lena almost smiled. Not sad. Not hysterical. Not begging. That was what unsettled him. Because Brady understood emotional women, he didn't understand emotionally detached ones. "I'm just tired," she repeated. He hesitated, then leaned down and kissed the top of her head. The affection felt horrifying now, like being touched by someone wearing another person's face. "I'll see you tonight." The second the front door closed, Lena burst into motion. She copied files and onto an encrypted drive, downloaded emails, forwarded documents to a private account Brady didn't know existed. Hours passed unnoticed while sunlight moved slowly across the kitchen floor. Around noon, her phone rang. Unknown number. Lena almost ignored it. "Hello, Ms. Wagner." The woman's voice sounded calm and direct. "My name is Naomi Pierce. I was given your information by someone who believed you might need employment counsel." Lena sat upright immediately. "Who gave you my number?" A pause. "I'd rather not say without their permission." "Ethan. It had to be Ethan." Lena swallowed hard. "I don't know if I'm ready for a lawyer." Naomi's voice remained steady. "Women usually call me 6 months after they should have." That sentence landed somewhere deep. Lena stared out the kitchen window at the immaculate suburban lawns lining their street. Everything looked peaceful here. That was the dangerous thing about emotional abuse. It looked beautiful from outside. Damn. An hour later, Lena sat inside Naomi Pierce's downtown office overlooking the river. No unnecessary decorations, no soft corporate language, just sharp lines and sharp eyes. Naomi reviewed the documents silently for almost 20 minutes. The silence itself felt unbearable. Finally, she removed her glasses slowly. "Lena." Something in Naomi's tone made her chest tighten. "Yes, you are not imagining this." The words nearly destroyed her, because part of Lena still needed permission to trust her own pain. Naomi continued calmly. "This compensation disparity alone is concerning, but combined with these internal comments and communications..." She tapped the Brady-Vanessa emails lightly. "This becomes something much darker." Lena looked down immediately, shame flooding her body. "I feel stupid." "No." Naomi's voice sharpened instantly. "You were manipulated." Lena's eyes burned. Naomi leaned forward slightly. "Smart women are often targeted specifically because they're empathetic. Empathy makes exploitation easier if the wrong people gain access to it." The sentence cracked something open inside her. Not weakness, recognition. Years suddenly rearranged themselves into clarity. Brady discouraging confidence. Vanessa delaying promotions. Everyone rewarding her silence while privately discussing how unlikely she was to fight back. Tears finally slipped down Lena's face. Quiet ones. Exhausted ones. "I really loved him," she whispered. Naomi's expression softened slightly. "I know." Lena laughed bitterly through tears. "I kept thinking if I worked harder, supported him more, stayed calmer, eventually things would feel safe again." Naomi was quiet for a moment. "Then women like you are taught that love means endless accommodation." Lena looked up slowly. "But accommodation without reciprocity becomes servitude." The room fell silent. Outside the office windows, Chicago moved normally. Cars, people, meetings, entire lives continuing, while Lena realized hers had been carefully controlled for years. Naomi closed the file folder gently. "Here's the real question now." Lena wiped her face weakly. "What question?" Naomi held her gaze directly. "Do you want fairness?" A pause, then or accountability. Lena stared at the evidence spread across the desk. Her marriage, her career, her humiliation, all intertwined. And for the first time since discovering the truth, she stopped thinking about saving what she lost. She started thinking about what they deserved to lose. The strange thing about finally reaching emotional exhaustion was how calm it looked from the outside. The next morning, Lena woke before sunrise as usual. She made coffee, answered emails, fed the sourdough starter Brady insisted they keep because it made their kitchen look intentional. Everything appeared normal. That was the terrifying part. A woman could be planning the destruction of every illusion in her life while still remembering to water the plants. Brady came downstairs around 7. "You feeling better?" Lena stood at the counter, stirring almond milk into coffee. "A little." He studied her carefully, still suspicious, still trying to read emotional temperature the way investors read markets. "Good," he said finally. "You scared me yesterday." The lie barely registered now. Lena handed him a mug calmly. "You have meetings all day, unfortunately." He rolled his eyes dramatically. Harold's forcing everyone into some pointless expansion review. Harold Whitmore, the chairman, the family friend, another thread in the web tightening around her life. Lena nodded lightly. "Sounds exhausting." Brady smirked. "Welcome to corporate America." Corporate America! The phrase almost made her laugh, as if she hadn't spent years bleeding herself dry for it already. Brady checked his watch before walking toward the door, then he stopped. "You're quiet lately." Lena looked up slowly. "Maybe I'm thinking." His jaw tightened almost invisibly, thinking women were dangerous, especially women who stopped asking permission first. Well, Brady said lightly, don't overthink yourself into doing something dramatic. The front door closed behind him, and Lena finally exhaled. At 10 o'clock sharp, she sat across from Naomi Pierce again. This time, the conference table between them was covered in organized evidence. Salary comparisons, internal reviews, email chains, behavioral notes. Naomi moved through each document methodically. You've done good work, she said. The compliment startled Lena more than it should have. Because it wasn't emotional reassurance, it was professional respect. She realized how long it had been since someone looked at her like she was competent, instead of fragile. Naomi slid a legal pad across the table. Here are your options. Lena looked down. Formal internal complaint, EEOC filing. Retaliation protections, compensation audit request, independent investigation demand. The words felt surreal, like they belonged to stronger women, women who didn't spend years apologizing for existing. I don't know if I can survive this publicly, Lena admitted quietly. Naomi leaned back slightly. Lena, they are counting on that. Silence. Then Naomi continued, people like Vanessa don't need every woman to stay silent. They just need enough women to decide protecting themselves emotionally is easier than fighting. Lena stared at the papers, and if I fight, Naomi's expression remained calm. Then they panic. For the first time in days, something almost dangerous flickered inside Lena's chest. Not revenge, clarity. Naomi turned the legal pad toward her fully. We start with a formal records request and notice of concern. That sounds small. It isn't. Naomi's eyes sharpened. Once this is documented officially, the company becomes legally aware of potential discrimination exposure. That changes everything. Lena swallowed slowly. Will Brady find out? Naomi gave her a look. He already chose his side. That sentence hurt, because it was true. Love became unbearable once denial expired. The rest of the afternoon passed inside strategy. Naomi was precise about everything. No emotional language, no dramatic accusations, only evidence. That terrified Lena more than anger ever could. Facts were harder to dismiss. By 5:30, Lena sat alone in Naomi's office, staring at the final email draft open on her laptop. Professional, controlled, devastating. Naomi stood near the window, speaking on another call, while Chicago darkened outside beneath storm clouds. Lena reread the email again. Every sentence felt irreversible, because it was. Once she sent this, the version of her life built around silence would die permanently. Her phone buzzed suddenly. Brady. She stared at the screen for several seconds before answering. What, I'm heading to dinner with Harold and a few investors, Brady said distractedly. You okay? Lena almost admired how naturally he lied now. How's Vanessa? She asked quietly. Silence. Pure silence. Then Brady laughed softly. What? Nothing. His voice changed instantly. Sharper. Careful. What's that supposed to mean? Lena looked at the email draft glowing on her screen. It means I know. Another silence. Longer this time. When Brady finally spoke again, his tone had lost all warmth. You're being paranoid. There are emails, Brady. His breathing shifted faintly. I can explain. Lena closed her eyes briefly. Of course he could. Men like Brady always had explanations. Never accountability. Don't do anything irrational, he said quickly now. Irrational. There it was again, the favorite word men use whenever women approach truth. You and Vanessa manipulated my compensation reviews. That's insane. You discussed my emotional state in private emails. She was helping me. Lena almost laughed from disbelief. Helping him. As if her humiliation had been some mutual wellness project. You told her things about our marriage. Brady exhaled sharply. You're twisting this. No, Lena whispered. I'm finally seeing it clearly. His voice hardened fully now. Lena listened carefully to me. That tone, the one he used when he expected obedience. You start making accusations like this, you will destroy your reputation. Not our marriage, not our future. Your reputation. Because Brady understood something she was only beginning to understand herself, women were punished socially for exposing powerful people, especially difficult women. Especially emotional women, especially women who stopped protecting men publicly. You really think they'll choose you over me? Brady asked quietly. The arrogance in the question stunned her, not because it was cruel, because he genuinely believed it. Lena looked at the clock. 6:41 p.m. 1 minute. One tiny minute before everything changed. I already made my choice, she said softly. Then she hung up. Her hands trembled violently afterward. Naomi walked back into the room immediately. You okay, no? Honest. Terrified. Alive. Lena stared at the cursor hovering above send. Years flashed through her mind. Every compromise, every apology, every time she accepted disrespect because she feared becoming too much. Her father teaching her to stay kind no matter what. Patricia teaching her to stay quiet. Brady teaching her to doubt herself. Vanessa teaching her loyalty was weakness. Enough. At exactly 6:42 p.m., Lena clicked send. The email disappeared instantly. CC Corporate Legal Department, Executive Compliance Office, Outside Counsel Documentation Archive. For a moment, nothing happened. The world remained terrifyingly ordinary. Traffic moved below the office windows. Phones rang somewhere outside. People laughed in hallways. Then Naomi's phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Naomi glanced at the screen and smiled faintly. That she said calmly is panic. Lena's own inbox exploded seconds later. Urgent meeting request, immediate HR follow-up, confidential discussion request, Vanessa Cole calling. Lena stared at the notifications flooding her screen. Her pulse thundered. For years, nobody moved this fast when she asked for fairness. But the second she created legal exposure, everyone suddenly became available. A hysterical laugh nearly escaped her throat. Naomi watched her carefully. How do you feel? Lena looked down at her shaking hands, then at the skyline outside, then at the evidence that had once felt too heavy to survive. Finally, she answered honestly, like I just burned my entire life down. Naomi nodded once. Sometimes that's the only way to stop living inside something built to destroy you. Lena's phone buzzed again. This time it was Brady, then again. She silenced the device completely. Across town, somewhere inside Whitmore and Hale, executives were scrambling. HR was panicking. Vanessa was probably furious, and for the first time in years, Lena Wagner was no longer asking permission to matter. The retaliation started before sunrise. At 6:13 a.m., Lena's inbox received an email from HR marked High Priority, Mandatory Wellness Evaluation Request. She stared at the screen while cold anger spread slowly through her chest. Not an investigation, not accountability. Psychological containment, Naomi had warned her. The moment powerful people realize they can't silence your evidence, she'd said the night before they'll try to discredit your stability. Now Lena was watching it happen in real time. A second email arrived 3 minutes later. Temporary meeting access restrictions pending review. Then another. Internal systems audit notice. Her hands tightened around the coffee mug. Whitmore and Hale moved faster to protect itself than it ever moved to protect her. Brady came downstairs while she was still reading. He looked exhausted. Good. For once, she wasn't the only one losing sleep. You ignored my calls, he said immediately. Lena kept her eyes on the laptop. I was busy with what destroying both our lives. She finally looked up. There was no softness left in Brady's face now. No fake concern, just controlled panic. You're sleeping with Vanessa, Lena said quietly. He froze. Not because he felt guilty, because the lie had expired. Brady ran a hand through his hair aggressively. This is exactly why I told you not to overreact. Lena almost laughed. Overreact. He had an affair with the woman helping sabotage her career, and somehow her response was still the issue. You shared personal information about me with her. You're taking things out of context. There is no context where that becomes acceptable. Brady stepped closer. You don't understand how complicated this is. No, Lena replied calmly. I understand perfectly now. That unsettled him instantly, because Lena wasn't crying, wasn't screaming, wasn't begging him to choose her. Emotionally manipulative people relied on emotional access, and she was slowly shutting every door. You sent legal notices to my family's business contacts, Brady snapped. I sent notices to my employer. You humiliated me. The sentence hung between them. Humiliated me. Not I hurt you, not I betrayed you, only humiliation, only ego. Lena studied him quietly, and suddenly she realized something devastating. Brady truly believed her role in the marriage was emotional maintenance, keeping him admired, keeping him comfortable, keeping him untouched by consequences. "You know what's interesting?" she asked softly. Brady frowned. "You spent years teaching me to feel guilty for asking basic questions." His expression darkened immediately. "Don't start rewriting history. You told me I was emotional every time I noticed unfairness. Because you are emotional." Lena nodded slowly. "Maybe." Then she stood. "But emotional women still deserve equal pay." For the first time since this began, Brady looked uncertain, not remorseful, afraid. "You need to stop before this becomes public," he said carefully. "There it is." "What? The truth." Lena grabbed her bag. "You don't care about me, Brady. You care about exposure." She walked toward the door. Brady caught her wrist suddenly. Not violently, but hard enough. Lena stopped instantly. The air shifted. Brady realized it too. His fingers loosened immediately. "You're making terrible decisions right now," he said quietly. And there it was. The first moment she no longer felt emotionally safe near him at all. At Whitmore and Hale, people stopped talking when Lena entered the office. Not subtle, not accidental. Entire conversations died mid-sentence. Coworkers avoided eye contact. Assistants suddenly became busy. The isolation felt surgical, like the company wanted her to experience social punishment before legal punishment became possible. Ethan approached her desk around 9:30 looking pale. "They're freaking out upstairs." Lena didn't look away from her screen. Good. He lowered his voice. "Vanessa's telling people you're unstable." That word again. Unstable. Not exploited, not betrayed. Unstable. Lena let out a quiet breath. She requested a wellness evaluation this morning. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "Jesus Christ, she wants a paper trail. For what? To make me look irrational." Ethan looked genuinely sick now. "I didn't realize it was this bad." Lena almost said, "Neither did I." But she had, deep down. Women always knew when something was wrong long before they admitted it aloud. Around noon, another calendar invitation appeared. Mandatory HR discussion, Vanessa Cole. Naomi had already instructed her never to meet alone, so Lena forwarded the invitation immediately. 5 minutes later, Vanessa herself appeared beside Lena's desk in a cream-colored designer suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. "Can we talk privately?" Lena remained seated. "I'd prefer legal counsel present." A flicker crossed Vanessa's face. "Tiny. Dangerous." Then the polished smile returned. "This doesn't need to become adversarial." Lena looked up slowly. "It already is." Nearby employees pretended not to listen while obviously listening to everything. Vanessa lowered her voice further. "We're concerned about your mental state." The cruelty of corporate language amazed Lena now. Concern weaponized into intimidation. "My mental state," she repeated calmly. "You've been behaving erratically." Lena almost smiled. Women became erratic the second they stopped tolerating disrespect politely. "I submitted documentation," Lena answered. "That's not erratic." Vanessa's eyes sharpened slightly. "You're making very serious allegations, and you're avoiding every serious question." Silence. Then Vanessa leaned closer. "You are jeopardizing a career you spent years building." Lena finally stood. And for the first time, Vanessa had to physically look up slightly to maintain eye contact. "I built my career," Lena said quietly. "You just profited from underpaying it." The silence around them deepened. Vanessa stepped back first. Interesting. Very interesting. By late afternoon, Lena felt emotionally drained in a way she couldn't describe. Not sadness, adrenaline exhaustion, years of suppressed instincts finally screaming all at once. She escaped to the underground parking garage for air just before 5. That was where Ethan found her again. He leaned against the concrete pillar nearby awkwardly. "I need to tell you something." Lena looked tired. "Okay." Ethan hesitated. Then finally, "Some of the guys joked about you." Her stomach tightened. "What kind of jokes?" His expression filled with shame. "They called you cheap talent." The words hit harder than she expected, not because they were cruel. Because they were efficient. That was exactly how the company viewed her. High-performing, reliable, underpriced. Ethan continued quietly. "They used to say Vanessa kept you loyal because you cared more about approval than money." Lena stared at the concrete floor. Something inside her hurt so deeply, She almost couldn't breathe. Approval. God, how many years had she spent trying to earn respect from people committed to exploiting her? I'm sorry, Ethan whispered. Lena laughed bitterly. Are you... He looked down immediately, because apology without risk was still self-protection. Finally, Ethan spoke again. There's more. Lena looked at him. I heard Vanessa talking to legal this morning. A pause. They're trying to frame you as emotionally compromised because of marital stress. The world went very still. Marital stress. Brady? Of course. Even now, he was still feeding them pieces of her vulnerability. Lena closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again, calmer than before. Would you testify to that? She asked quietly. Ethan froze. Real fear entered his face instantly. Lena, they're trying to destroy my credibility. I know. Would you testify? Silence stretched painfully between them. Then finally, slowly, Ethan nodded. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Lena realized something important. Truth became harder to bury the moment other people stopped protecting themselves more than they protected it. By the second day, the fear inside Whitmore and Hale had changed shape. The first 24 hours had been denial. Now came containment. Lena felt it the second she walked into the office Friday morning. People weren't just avoiding her anymore. They were watching her, like she had become dangerous overnight. An assistant accidentally dropped a folder near the elevators when Lena approached. Two analysts stopped whispering the moment she passed. Someone from legal stepped out of a conference room and stared too long before quickly looking away. The company was bleeding anxiety through its walls. Good. Lena sat at her desk calmly, though her stomach twisted nonstop beneath the surface. She hadn't slept more than 3 hours. Every time she closed her eyes, she replayed the same realization. Brady didn't merely betray her emotionally. He helped weaponize her vulnerability professionally. That changed something fundamental. It transformed heartbreak into strategy. At 9:17 a.m., her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, she ignored unfamiliar calls now, but something made her answer. Hello? A woman's voice responded immediately. Is this Lena Wagner? Yes. A pause. Then softly, my name is Olivia Hart. Lena straightened instantly. I used to work at Whitmore and Hale. The room around Lena suddenly disappeared into silence. Olivia continued carefully, like someone speaking through old trauma. Naomi Pierce gave me your number. She thought you deserved context before they try to bury this. Lena swallowed hard. Bury what? Another pause. Then, you're not the first woman they did this to. An hour later, Lena sat inside a quiet coffee shop, 3 blocks from the office, while rain streaked the windows outside. Olivia Hart looked older than 38, not physically, emotionally, like stress had carved permanent exhaustion into her posture. She wrapped both hands around untouched tea while studying Lena carefully. You look exactly how I looked, Olivia said quietly. Lena frowned slightly. How confused enough to still blame yourself? That sentence landed hard. Olivia pulled a folder from her bag slowly. Inside were printed performance reviews, salary comparisons, resignation documents. Lena's chest tightened immediately. 3 years ago, I filed an internal complaint after discovering 2 male directors with lower numbers were making substantially more than me. Lena already knew the ending, because she had lived the beginning. What happened? Olivia laughed softly, not amused, broken. First they praised my professionalism, then they suggested I was emotionally overwhelmed, then HR recommended wellness counseling. Exactly the same pattern. Lena felt cold all over. They isolated me from major accounts. Olivia continued. People stopped including me in meetings. Suddenly I was difficult. Vanessa, Olivia nodded instantly. She's very good at it. Did anyone help you? A long silence. Then Olivia looked down. No. The loneliness in that single word almost shattered Lena. I quit 6 months later, Olivia whispered. They offered me severance in exchange for silence. Lena stared at the papers. You signed it. I was exhausted. Olivia's eyes filled slightly, and I was scared no one would believe me. The truth settled heavily between them. This wasn't random. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was a system refined through repetition. How many women? Lena asked quietly. Olivia hesitated. Enough. The word echoed painfully. Enough women silenced. Enough women doubting themselves. Enough women choosing survival over war. Olivia reached across the table gently. They're terrified of you right now. Lena blinked. Why? Because you didn't disappear. That sentence stayed with her long after the meeting ended. Back at Whitmore and Hale, the atmosphere had become openly hostile. Lena returned to find her system access partially restricted. Client folders removed, meeting permissions revoked, a quiet punishment campaign unfolding in real time. When she approached IIT, the technician refused eye contact. Orders from leadership, of course. Upstairs, Vanessa was probably framing every retaliatory action as necessary protocol. Lena sat down slowly at her desk while anger pulsed beneath her skin. Then her inbox exploded. Anonymous messages. At first she assumed legal notices. Instead, thank you for speaking up. I thought I was the only one. Please don't let them silence you. Some messages were only one sentence long. Others detailed years of discrimination, inappropriate comments denied, raises leadership intimidation. One woman wrote, I started crying when I heard someone finally challenged Vanessa. Another, be careful. They destroy women socially before they destroy them professionally. Lena read every message with trembling hands, because behind each anonymous email was another woman taught to doubt herself, another woman surviving quietly, another woman apologizing for needing fairness. Her phone rang again. Brady. Lena ignored it. 2 seconds later, another call, then another. Finally, she answered. What? Where are you? Brady demanded immediately. At work. You need to stop talking to people. Lena almost laughed. You sound nervous. I'm serious. So am I. Brady exhaled sharply. You have no idea what this is doing to me. To him. Always to him. My father's getting calls, Brady snapped. Harold's furious. People are asking questions. Good. Silence. Then Brady's voice lowered dangerously. You think you're winning something right now? Lena stared out the office window at the gray skyline. I think I'm finally telling the truth. You're destroying your marriage. No, she whispered. You did that. For a moment, Brady sounded almost desperate. Lena, please. We can fix this privately. Privately, where powerful men preferred women's pain to remain. You don't get to decide privacy anymore. Brady's breathing changed. Then suddenly a loud crash shattered through the phone. Glass! Something breaking. Lena froze. What was that? Brady didn't answer immediately. When he spoke again, rage leaked beneath every word. You are humiliating me. Fear slid slowly down Lena's spine. Not because Brady yelled, because she realized he viewed exposure as violence against him, and men who felt entitled to control narratives often became dangerous once they lost it. You should have thought about that before sleeping with Vanessa. Another silence. Then Brady hissed, You don't understand what people like her can do. People like her. Interesting. Not what we did. What she can do. Meaning Vanessa held power over him too. Before Lena could respond, the line disconnected. Her hands shook slightly afterward. Not heartbreak anymore. Instinct. That evening, Naomi met her again in the office conference room they had unofficially claimed as war headquarters. Lena handed over Olivia's documents. Naomi reviewed them silently. Then finally, this changes everything. How bad is it? Naomi looked up calmly. This is no longer an isolated discrimination claim. Lena sat slowly across from her. What does that mean? It means Whitmore and Hale may have systemic exposure. Systemic. The word felt enormous, terrifying. Naomi folded her hands carefully. Lena, if multiple women testify to patterns of underpayment, retaliation, and psychological coercion. A pause. This becomes institutional misconduct. Lena stared down at the table. Institutional misconduct, all because she finally stopped apologizing for noticing unfairness. Naomi's phone buzzed suddenly. She glanced at the screen briefly before smirking. Naomi slid the phone across the table, an internal memo. Emergency board meeting scheduled Saturday morning. Lena's pulse slowed. They're escalating fast, Naomi said quietly. No, Lena whispered. She looked toward the dark city skyline beyond the glass. They're panicking fast. Then her own phone vibrated again. This time the message came from a blocked number. One sentence only. You have no idea how far they'll go to protect themselves. Lena stared at the screen while cold dread spread slowly through her chest. And for the first time since this began, she realized this fight was no longer just about money. It was about power. By Saturday morning, Whitmore and Hale no longer looked untouchable. It looked scared. Lena saw it immediately when the elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Assistants moved too fast. Lawyers whispered in corners. Senior leadership avoided eye contact, like silence itself might protect them legally. The emergency board meeting had been scheduled for 8 a.m. sharp. And somehow, despite everything, Lena still felt surreal walking into the building. 3 days earlier, she had been another overworked woman, trying not to inconvenience anyone. Now entire departments were panicking because she stopped accepting humiliation quietly. Naomi walked beside her in black heels and absolute composure. "You don't need to perform emotion today," she said calmly as they approached the conference room. Lena looked at her. "What do you mean? You've spent years trying to look agreeable enough to survive." Naomi adjusted the folder beneath her arm. Today, clarity matters more than likability. The word settled somewhere deep, because likability had nearly destroyed her life. Outside the boardroom, Brady stood waiting. The second he saw her, tension flooded his face. He looked awful. Wrinkled shirt, bloodshot eyes, controlled panic barely held together by ego. "Can we talk?" he asked immediately. Naomi didn't even slow down. "No." Brady ignored her completely. "Lena, please." The desperation in his voice might have moved her once. Now it only exhausted her. "We have nothing to discuss privately anymore," Lena answered quietly. Brady stepped closer anyway. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." Naomi stopped walking, slowly, dangerously. "This situation became large the moment your client engaged in systemic compensation, discrimination, and retaliatory conduct," she said calmly. Brady glared at her. "Stay out of my marriage." Naomi's expression never changed. "Your marriage entered the legal discussion the moment you used intimate access to assist workplace manipulation." Brady visibly flinched. "Good." Lena realized suddenly how rarely men like Brady were spoken to directly, without softness, without emotional cushioning. For years, everyone around him had managed his comfort carefully. Now the room ahead waited full of people who could no longer afford comfort. The boardroom doors opened. Inside sat 12 executives beneath cold recessed lighting and panoramic city views. Harold Whitmore at the head of the table, Margaret Whitmore beside him, legal counsel lining the walls, Vanessa Cole near the far end, looking immaculate in white silk despite the disaster unfolding around her. And every single person turned toward Lena the second she entered, not with respect, with calculation, like she had become a problem requiring containment. Ms. Wagner Harold began stiffly, "Thank you for attending." Lena sat beside Naomi quietly. Vanessa folded her hands elegantly. "Before we proceed, I'd like to express concern regarding the emotionally charged nature of recent events." Naomi almost smiled. "Ah, straight to character assassination, predictable." Margaret Whitmore spoke sharply before Naomi could respond. "Vanessa, let's avoid editorial language." "Interesting, very interesting." Vanessa's expression tightened only slightly. Lena noticed. Margaret continued calmly. "We are here to assess potential liability exposure and internal misconduct allegations. Not misunderstandings, not communication issues. Misconduct." The word changed the room. Harold cleared his throat heavily. "Ms. Wagner, your complaint alleges compensation disparities, retaliatory behavior, and inappropriate communications involving senior personnel." Lena nodded once. "Yes." Harold's jaw tightened. "Those are serious accusations." Lena finally spoke fully. "So is 5 years of documented underpayment." Silence. The executives shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa leaned forward smoothly. "With respect, compensation structures involve multiple factors beyond performance metrics." Naomi opened a folder immediately. "Correct," she said. "Which is why we compared Ms. Wagner's compensation against peers with lower metrics, reduced retention performance, and shorter tenure." Paper copies slid across the table. The sound alone felt lethal. Margaret scanned the documents first. Her face changed slowly. Not guilt, recognition. Then came another file. Internal review comments, behavioral language, psychological profiling notes. Vanessa's color faded almost invisibly. Harold frowned deeply while reading. "What exactly is this?" he demanded. Naomi answered calmly. "Internal language used to justify suppressing compensation growth for female employees considered emotionally compliant. No one spoke, because the evidence was too specific now, too organized, too real." Vanessa recovered first. "These notes are being taken out of context." Lena looked directly at her for the first time all morning. "What context makes unlikely to leave due to marital dependency structure? Appropriate HR language." Vanessa froze. Across the room, several executives looked visibly disturbed. "Good, they should be." Margaret lowered the papers slowly. "Vanessa," she said carefully, "did you discuss Ms. Wagner's marriage during compensation evaluations?" Vanessa immediately shifted strategy. Brady Wagner occasionally expressed concern regarding Lena's emotional stress levels and work-life balance. Lena felt cold rage move slowly through her chest. Concern. Such a pretty word for sabotage. Naomi slid another folder forward. Would the board also like to review communications regarding strategic delay recommendations tied to Ms. Wagner's perceived emotional compliance? Vanessa's composure cracked. Barely. But enough. Harold looked furious now. What the hell is going on here? No one answered immediately. Then Lena finally spoke. Not loudly. That made it worse. "For 5 years," she said quietly, "this company praised my loyalty while profiting from my silence." The room went still. Lena continued. "I trained men who were paid more than me. I fixed executive failures while being told I lacked leadership presence. And every time I got close to questioning it, someone reminded me to stay grateful." No one interrupted her now, because truth delivered calmly terrified people more than screaming ever could. "You built profit margins," Lena whispered on women who didn't complain. Margaret closed her eyes briefly. Across the room, Brady looked pale. Not guilty, cornered. Naomi spoke again. "We also have testimony from additional female employees describing similar patterns of suppression and retaliation." Harold slammed a hand against the table suddenly. "How many?" Silence. Then Naomi answered, "We are still determining that." The room shifted instantly. Not a single incident anymore. Potential pattern, potential scandal, potential institutional exposure. Vanessa straightened sharply. This is becoming dangerously exaggerated. And there it was. Not false. Exaggerated. Margaret turned toward her slowly. "Did you or did you not participate in compensation suppression strategies tied to behavioral profiling?" Vanessa's eyes flickered toward Brady instinctively, one tiny glance. But Lena saw it. So did Naomi. And suddenly the room understood something else. Brady was involved far deeper than anyone initially realized. Harold looked between them in dawning horror. What exactly was Mr. Wagner's role in this? Brady immediately stood. "This is absurd." No one stopped him, because panic was speaking now. "I tried to help my wife manage stress," Brady snapped. "That's all." Naomi calmly opened another printed email. "Would you like me to read your statements regarding Ms. Wagner being easier to manage when emotionally insecure?" The silence afterward felt violent. Brady looked genuinely shaken for the first time, because now he understood this was no longer private manipulation hidden inside marriage. This was evidence. Margaret stared at Brady with open disgust. "Did you feed personal information about your wife to company leadership?" "No." Brady lied instantly. Naomi slid the email across the table. Brady's exact words stared back at him. "She'll stay loyal if she thinks stability is at risk," Harold muttered. Jesus Christ. Vanessa finally snapped. "This is unfair." Everyone turned toward her. She looked at Brady now with naked fury. "You told me she would never escalate legally." There it was. The mistake. The accidental truth. The room exploded into overlapping voices immediately. Margaret stood sharply. "Enough." Silence crashed back down. Margaret looked at Lena carefully, and for the first time since this began, someone powerful looked at her like a human being instead of a problem. Then Margaret spoke the sentence that changed everything. "We are initiating a full independent investigation effective immediately." Across the table, Vanessa turned slowly toward Brady, and the hatred in her eyes made Lena realize something terrifying. When systems built on manipulation start collapsing, the people inside them begin eating each other alive. The investigation detonated faster than anyone expected. By Monday morning, Whitmore and Hale looked like a luxury building pretending not to be on fire. Executives moved through hallways with legal counsel attached to their hips. HR representatives spoke in whispers. Entire departments received compliance notices before sunrise. And for the first time in 6 years, people looked at Lena differently, not dismissively, carefully, because power had shifted. Not fully, but enough to make everyone nervous. Lena stood near the coffee station on the 32nd floor when 2 junior associates walked in and abruptly stopped talking. One of them looked embarrassed. The other looked afraid. Lena almost pitied them. This was what toxic systems did to ordinary people. It trained them to survive by pretending not to notice cruelty until cruelty became expensive. Her phone buzzed. Naomi. "Conference room B," Naomi said immediately. "Now." The tone told Lena everything. Something big happened. When she entered the room, Naomi already had 3 folders spread across the table, and Ethan Brooks sat beside her, looking physically ill. "What's wrong?" Lena asked. Naomi slid a document toward her silently. Internal interview summary. Ethan Brooks. Lena scanned the pages quickly, then froze. Multiple male employees referred to Lena Wagner internally as cheap talent. Another line underneath management discussions implied Ms. Wagner was unlikely to escalate compensation concerns due to approval-seeking tendencies. Lena lowered the paper slowly. Every word felt like acid, not because she didn't already know, because seeing your humiliation documented professionally felt different. Ethan looked miserable. "I'm sorry." Lena stared at him. Why now?" His throat moved hard before he answered. "Because I realized I kept benefiting from it. Honest. Painfully honest. And somehow that hurt more than excuses would have." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "There's more." Naomi handed Lena another document. Additional witness statements, 3 women, then 4, then 6. Different departments, same patterns. Lower compensation, emotional language and evaluations, retaliation after questioning leadership decisions. One woman described being called unstable after requesting promotion transparency. Another said Vanessa advised her to focus on gratitude instead of comparison. Lena closed the folder slowly. "Oh my God," Naomi nodded once. "This is systemic." The word felt heavier every time she heard it. Systemic meant intentional. Systemic meant practiced. Systemic meant generations of women quietly surviving the same humiliation while blaming themselves individually. A sharp knock interrupted them. Then Harold Whitmore entered, alone. No assistants, no lawyers, no performance. The chairman suddenly looked older than Lena remembered. "Ms. Wagner," he said stiffly. Lena stood automatically. Harold looked uncomfortable. "Good. He should. I wanted to inform you personally," he continued carefully, "that Vanessa Cole has been placed on immediate administrative leave." Ethan exhaled sharply beside her, but Lena remained still. "Only Vanessa?" she asked quietly. Harold's jaw tightened. "There are multiple ongoing reviews." Translation. They were still calculating who could be sacrificed safely. Harold glanced toward the folders on the table, then at Lena. "You should understand this company has existed for 42 years. Lena almost laughed. There it was. Legacy. The shield powerful institutions use whenever accountability threatened them, as if longevity excuses exploitation, Naomi asked calmly. Harold visibly bristled. "No, but reputations matter." Lena finally spoke, not as much as people. The sentence landed harder than she intended, because suddenly nobody in the room could pretend this was merely about policy anymore. It was about human damage. Harold studied her carefully, and for the first time Lena saw uncertainty in a powerful man who had probably never expected women like her to become dangerous. "We are trying to contain this responsibly," he said. Naomi's expression remained cold. "Containment is exactly the problem." Silence. Then Harold sighed heavily. "You need to understand the media implications if this escalates publicly." Again, public image over private suffering. Lena felt something inside her finally detach completely from fear. For years, she said softly, women inside this company managed their pain privately so leadership could protect its image publicly. Harold looked away first. Interesting. Very interesting. That afternoon, more evidence surfaced. compensation, manipulation spreadsheets, internal ranking biases, performance language guides. The deeper investigators looked, the uglier everything became. At 3:40 p.m., Lena received another anonymous message. This one contained screenshots. Brady and Vanessa. Not kissing. Worse. Planning. If Lena gets promoted now, she'll become impossible to manage. Another message from Brady underneath. She needs stability more than status. Lena stared at the screen until her vision blurred. Stability. That was how Brady justified controlling her. By convincing himself dependence was protection. Her phone rang seconds later. Richard Wagner. Lena nearly ignored it, then answered. What Richard's voice came sharp and cold immediately. You've embarrassed this family enough. No greeting, no concern, just reputation management. I'm not responsible for Brady's choices. You're responsible for turning private marital issues into corporate warfare. Lena closed her eyes briefly. Private? You should have handled this quietly. Of course. Every powerful person in her life believed silence was virtue when silence protected them. Richard continued harshly. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for Brady? Lena laughed softly, actually laughed, because the absurdity had finally become unbearable. He slept with the woman helping sabotage my career, and now you're trying to destroy his. There it was, the entire worldview. Men's mistakes were forgivable. Women's reactions were unforgivable. You know what's amazing, Lena whispered. What? You all keep talking about Brady's humiliation like mine never mattered. Richard went silent, then colder. You're emotional right now. The sentence almost made her smile. Of course she was emotional. A human being betrayed systematically should feel emotion, but somehow powerful people always framed women's emotional responses as proof they couldn't be trusted. No, Lena said quietly. I'm finally honest. Then she hung up. For the first time in years, she didn't feel guilty afterward. At 6 that evening, Naomi called her back into conference room B. Olivia Hart sat there this time too. Along with 2 other women Lena recognized from separate divisions, everyone looked exhausted and angry. Naomi stood near the whiteboard. We need to discuss next steps. Olivia folded her arms tightly. They'll try to isolate all of us individually. One of the women nodded immediately. That's how they survive. Lena looked around the room slowly. Different ages, different departments, different stories. Same damage. One woman whispered quietly, I thought I was weak. The sentence shattered something inside Lena, because that was the cruelest part of institutional manipulation. It convinced women their survival responses were personality flaws. Naomi placed another document on the table. Independent investigation expansion notice. Additional interviews pending. Potential executive misconduct review. The room went silent because everyone understood now this wasn't survivable privately anymore. The company couldn't bury all of them at once. Lena looked down at the papers, then finally said the thing sitting inside her chest for years. I spent so much time asking people to value me. The room listened quietly. Tears burned behind Lena's eyes, but her voice stayed steady. I should have been asking why I needed permission in the first place. Nobody spoke afterward, because some truths arrived too late to feel comforting. Outside the conference room windows, Chicago glowed beneath the darkening sky. Meanwhile, somewhere inside the city, Brady Wagner was finally realizing something devastating. Lena Wagner no longer wanted her old life back. And men like Brady only understood the value of loyalty after they destroyed the woman willing to give it. That night, just after midnight, someone started pounding on Lena's front door. The pounding on the front door didn't stop. 3 hard knocks. Pause. Then louder. Lena Brady. Of course. Lena stood frozen in the dark kitchen while midnight shadows stretched across marble countertops and expensive hardwood floors she no longer emotionally recognized as home. For years, this house represented success. Now it felt like evidence. Another bang shook the door. Lena opened the damn door. Her heartbeat stayed strangely calm. Not because she wasn't afraid, because fear had finally burned itself out. She walked slowly toward the entryway, but didn't unlock it. What do you want, silence outside? Then Brady's voice lowered slightly. We need to talk. Interesting. Not, I'm sorry, not, are you okay, need, always need. Lena leaned against the wall quietly. It's midnight. I know. You could have called. You stopped answering because she stopped performing emotional availability on command. Brady exhaled sharply outside the door. Please. The word sounded unfamiliar coming from him, not tender, desperate. Lena opened the door halfway but kept the security latch engaged. Brady looked terrible. His expensive coat hung wrinkled, his eyes were bloodshot, his jaw carried the strained tension of someone watching their carefully constructed life collapse in real time. For one brief second she remembered loving him, then she remembered the emails. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. Brady stared at her through the narrow opening. You've destroyed everything. The sentence landed almost gently now, because Lena finally understood something devastating. People like Brady experienced accountability as victimization. You did that yourself. No. Brady shook his head immediately. No, Lena, you don't understand what's happening. Then explain it. He ran both hands through his hair roughly. Harold's threatening legal separation from my father's firm. Vanessa's trying to protect herself. Reporters are calling people already. Reporters. Interesting. So the fear was finally becoming public. Brady looked at her desperately now. You need to stop talking to those women. Lena almost laughed from disbelief. Those women, as if solidarity itself offended him. They're telling the truth. You don't know what they're saying. I know enough. Brady's voice sharpened instantly. You think these people care about you? The second this gets uglier, they'll disappear and leave you alone in the fallout. There it was. Projection. Because that was exactly what he would do. Lena looked at him quietly through the cracked doorway. You already left me alone in the fallout. For a moment, Brady looked genuinely wounded, then angry, then frightened again. Everything inside him kept shifting because manipulation stopped working once the other person finally saw it clearly. I made mistakes, he admitted finally. The sentence sounded painful for him to say, but Lena waited. Nothing else came. No real remorse, no accountability. Just vague language designed to soften guilt. Mistakes, she repeated quietly. Brady clenched his jaw. The affair happened because things between us were already broken. Classic. The oldest cowardice in the world blaming the betrayed person for the betrayal itself. Lena stared at him in disbelief. You gave Vanessa private information about my mental state. I was venting. You helped her manipulate my career. I didn't know she'd use it like that. Lie. They both knew it was a lie. Lena's chest tightened slowly. You knew exactly what she was doing. Brady looked away, and somehow that hurt more than yelling, because silence was truth finally cornered. A car passed slowly outside beneath dim suburban streetlights. Inside the house, the clock above the kitchen ticked quietly. Everything felt unbearably intimate. The collapse of a marriage rarely sounded dramatic in real life. Sometimes it sounded like two exhausted people speaking softly, while years of damage sat between them. Brady looked back at her suddenly. I was trying to protect what we built. The sentence almost broke her. Not because it was romantic, because he genuinely believed it. He thought control was protection, dependence was stability, silence was love. Lena felt tears rise unexpectedly, not for the marriage, for the woman she used to be inside it. I loved you so much, she whispered. Brady's face cracked immediately. I know. No. Lena shook her head slowly. I don't think you do. Silence. Then finally she said the thing living inside her chest for years. I made myself smaller every day to make you comfortable. Brady looked devastated now. Good, he should hear it. I apologize for needs I should have been allowed to have naturally. I questioned my intelligence because you questioned it first. I worked myself sick trying to prove I was valuable enough to keep. Her voice trembled slightly, but you already knew I was valuable. Brady swallowed hard. That's not fair. Lena laughed softly through tears. There's that word again. Fair. Funny how fairness only mattered once consequences arrived. Brady stepped closer instinctively before remembering the locked chain between them. Lena, please. The desperation in his voice deepened. I can fix this. No, she whispered, and for the first time she meant it completely. Brady stared at her like the answer physically hurt him. You're really throwing our marriage away. That sentence changed something final inside her, because even now, even after the affair, the manipulation, the humiliation, he still framed her refusal to tolerate abuse as destruction. Lena looked at him carefully. You already destroyed it. I'm just refusing to keep pretending it survived. Brady's eyes filled suddenly. Real tears. Not performance. Actual grief. And somehow that made everything sadder. Because Lena realized too late that Brady probably did love her in his own distorted way. But not enough to stop benefiting from her suffering. Not enough to choose integrity over convenience. Not enough to protect her when protecting her became inconvenient socially. He lowered his voice. What happens now? Lena inhaled slowly, then answered with terrifying calm. I filed separation paperwork yesterday. Brady stopped breathing. Actually stopped. The silence afterward felt massive. You what? It's done. No. His face drained completely. No, Lena, don't do this. Interesting. He didn't panic over the affair being exposed. He panicked when he lost ownership of her emotionally. You filed already. Yes. When before the board meeting. Brady staggered back slightly like she hit him, because for the first time he realized something unbearable while he was trying to contain her. She was already leaving. You planned this, no, Lena said softly. You forced it. Brady's breathing became uneven now. You can't just erase 10 years. I'm not erasing them. A tear slid down Lena's cheek quietly. I'm surviving them. The sentence shattered whatever composure Brady still had. He pressed a hand against his forehead roughly. My life is collapsing, Lena almost said. Now you know how that feels. But she didn't, because cruelty exhausted her now. Instead, she answered honestly, You should have thought about that before turning my pain into strategy. Suddenly, headlights swept across the driveway. Another car pulling up. Brady frowned sharply. What now? Lena looked past him through the glass. A courier vehicle. Official delivery. Moments later, footsteps approached the porch. Then a knock. Delivery for Brady Wagner. Brady opened the door automatically, confused. The courier handed over a sealed envelope and left without another word. Lena recognized the law firm logo immediately. Naomi Pierce and Associates. Brady opened the envelope with shaking hands, then froze. His entire face changed. What is this? Lena already knew. Subpoena notification. Document preservation order. Formal notice regarding investigation cooperation. Brady looked up slowly, terrified now. Not socially embarrassed, terrified. Because suddenly this wasn't marital drama anymore. This was legal exposure, consequences, permanent records. He stared at Lena like he was seeing her for the first time. And maybe he was. Because the woman standing in front of him no longer cared about being chosen, only about finally choosing herself. 3 weeks later, Whitmore and Hale stopped pretending the situation was containable. The investigation had spread too far. Too many interviews, too many documents. Too many women finally speaking without whispering. Every day brought another revelation. Internal compensation suppression strategies, promotion bias language, retaliation coaching. And somewhere in the middle of the corporate collapse, Lena realized something strange. She no longer woke up afraid, exhausted, yes, heartbroken still, but not afraid. Fear had controlled most of her adult life without her recognizing it. Fear of conflict, fear of abandonment, fear of being too emotional, fear of losing love if she became inconvenient. Now everything inconvenient had already happened, and she survived anyway. That terrified powerful people more than lawsuits ever could. Lena sat beside Naomi inside a private mediation office overlooking downtown Chicago while rain streaked softly across the windows. Across the table sat Whitmore and Hale's legal team. 3 attorneys, 2 compliance executives, Margaret Whitmore herself. Vanessa was gone now, officially resigned, unofficially sacrificed. Brady's name, however, still floated through every investigation interview like toxic smoke. Margaret looked exhausted, not performatively concerned, actually exhausted. This situation has become deeply damaging to everyone involved. One attorney began carefully. Naomi almost smiled. There it was again, the passive language corporations use to avoid naming harm directly. Like injustice simply materialized out of thin air. Your company systematically underpaid female employees while retaliating against internal concerns. Naomi replied calmly. Let's avoid vague wording. The attorney cleared his throat. We are prepared to offer significant compensation. Lena stared quietly at the settlement folder sliding toward her. Numbers filled the pages. Back pay, damages, bonus corrections, stock compensation, retirement adjustments. The total made her stomach twist, not because it was generous, because it quantified years of humiliation so neatly. Can pain be calculated in spreadsheets? Apparently, yes. Margaret finally spoke directly. We failed you. The room went still. Lena looked up slowly. Margaret's expression carried no defensiveness anymore, only the exhausted clarity of someone realizing leadership without accountability becomes cowardice. You trusted this company, Margaret continued quietly, and we rewarded your loyalty by exploiting it. Hearing someone powerful finally say the truth aloud nearly broke Lena emotionally, because for years she had questioned herself more than the system hurting her. Naomi turned another page. We also require mandatory compensation audits and independent oversight reforms. One attorney sighed visibly. Those reforms will be expensive. Lena laughed softly before she could stop herself. Everyone looked at her, and suddenly she realized how absurd everything truly was. Women lost years of dignity, confidence, income, mental health, and powerful men still worried most about expense. Margaret closed the folder slowly. The reforms stay. Interesting. Very interesting. The attorneys exchanged uneasy looks but said nothing further. Then came the final section, confidentiality agreement, NDA clause. Lena read it once silently, then looked up. No. The attorney blinked. Excuse me, I won't sign confidentiality restrictions. Immediate tension flooded the room. Naomi remained perfectly calm. Ms. Wagner is not interested in silence-based settlement structures. The attorney tried again carefully. This is standard. Lena looked directly at him. So was underpaying women, apparently. Silence. Margaret studied Lena for several seconds. Then slowly she nodded. Remove the NDA. Even Naomi looked mildly surprised. One attorney protested instantly. Margaret, remove it. The room shifted again, power changing shape in real time. Lena realized something important. Then the company wasn't settling because they suddenly became ethical. They were settling because exposure finally outweighed arrogance. Outside the mediation office, reporters already circled quietly around the whispers of corporate discrimination and executive misconduct, not front-page national scandal yet, but close enough to make wealthy people sweat through expensive suits. And Brady was unraveling publicly. His father's firm lost 2 major clients after internal gossip connected the Wagner name to the investigation. Invitations stopped arriving. Calls stopped being returned. Men who once laughed with Brady at private clubs now avoided being photographed near him. Lena learned quickly that powerful social circles had one real loyalty: self-preservation. That evening, Brady called again. She almost ignored it. Almost. What? His voice sounded hollow now. Did you settle? Almost. A pause. Then quietly, you really destroyed all of this? Lena closed her eyes briefly. Even now, even after everything, he still spoke like consequences appeared magically instead of being created by choices. You keep saying I destroyed things, she answered softly, but you still won't admit what you actually did. Brady inhaled shakily. I made mistakes. There's that word again. Silence. Then finally real honesty. Small, ugly, late. I didn't think you'd ever leave. The sentence hit harder than she expected, because beneath all Brady's manipulation lived something brutally simple he believed: her love guaranteed access forever. Lena sat down slowly beside her apartment window. You got comfortable hurting me. No. Yes. Her voice stayed calm now. That frightened him more than anger ever did. You thought I'd keep choosing the marriage over myself no matter what happened. Brady didn't answer, because truth finally cornered sounded exactly like silence. After the call ended, Lena remained still for a long time, watching city lights flicker across wet streets below. Then her inbox chimed softly. New message. From Whitmore and Hale Executive Leadership. Official settlement confirmation. Attached beneath it, corporate policy reform announcement. Mandatory pay equity audits. Anonymous reporting systems. Independent oversight reviews. Retaliation accountability measures. Lena stared at the screen quietly. Part of her should have felt victorious. This was justice, wasn't it? The company admitted wrongdoing. Women were finally protected. Powerful people faced consequences. So why did she still feel empty? Naomi answered that question 2 days later over lunch. You expected accountability to heal betrayal, she said calmly. Lena looked down at her untouched coffee. Doesn't it? No. Naomi's expression softened slightly. Justice and healing are different things. The sentence stayed with her all afternoon because she realized she'd spent weeks surviving adrenaline, war mode, fight mode. Now the fight was slowing down, and underneath all the rage lived grief, real grief, for the marriage, for the years lost, for the woman who kept begging for love from people benefiting from her self-doubt. Later that night, Lena returned to the suburban house one final time while Brady was away. The rooms echoed strangely now. Too large, too staged, too full of memories built around performance. She walked slowly through the kitchen where she once apologized for being too emotional, past the dining room where Brady dismissed her pain while she still tried to protect his image, into the bedroom where she spent years shrinking herself carefully enough to remain lovable. Her chest tightened, not because she wanted the marriage back, because she finally understood how lonely she'd been inside it. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Lena answered carefully. Hello, a woman's voice responded nervously. Hi, my name is Maya Bennett. Lena frowned slightly. I work at Stratwell Consulting. A pause. I heard what you did. Lena leaned against the bedroom doorway silently. Maya continued softly. I think the same thing is happening to me. And suddenly, Lena realized something bigger than revenge. Her story no longer belonged only to her. The first night Lena slept alone in the new apartment, she cried because it was quiet. Not sad quiet, safe quiet. No tension hidden beneath conversations. No careful monitoring of Brady's moods. No pressure to make herself emotionally smaller so someone else could feel bigger. Just silence. The apartment overlooked the Chicago River from the 19th floor. It was smaller than the suburban house by more than half, but somehow it felt larger emotionally, like she could finally breathe inside her own life. Still, healing didn't arrive dramatically. It arrived awkwardly. Loneliness wrapped itself around ordinary moments in ways Lena never expected. Standing alone in grocery store aisles, making 1 cup of coffee instead of 2, waking up instinctively at 2 a.m. waiting for Brady's headlights in the driveway before remembering he no longer lived there. Grief was strange that way. You could know leaving was right and still mourn what you hoped the relationship could have been. That realization embarrassed her at first, until Naomi corrected her gently. You're not grieving the man Brady actually was, Naomi said during one of their lunch meetings. They sat outside a quiet cafe overlooking the river while early autumn wind moved through the city. You're grieving the emotional future you kept trying to earn. The sentence stayed with Lena for days, because she realized how much of her marriage had been built on potential instead of reality. Potential Brady, potential happiness, potential safety. Women were taught to love possibility so deeply, they ignored patterns standing directly in front of them. Lena stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. I still feel stupid sometimes. Naomi sighed softly. You need to stop confusing trust with weakness. Lena looked down, but the signs were obvious. They're obvious now, Naomi corrected gently. Manipulative people rely on hindsight shame. It keeps victims blaming themselves instead of examining the manipulation. That changed something inside Lena. Not dramatically, just enough. Enough to soften the cruelty she aimed toward herself. The apartment slowly began feeling like home. Not curated, not staged, actually hers. There were books stacked carelessly near the couch. Music played while she cooked. Blankets stayed unfolded without apology. For the first time in years, nobody watched her constantly for emotional inconvenience. And that freedom felt almost unfamiliar. One Saturday afternoon, Lena returned to the old house to finish packing the last remaining boxes. The realtor had already staged most rooms aggressively. The family photos were gone. The wedding portrait disappeared. Even the kitchen felt emotionally hollow now. Lena moved quietly through the house, taping boxes shut, while memories surfaced without permission. Brady dancing with her barefoot in the kitchen years earlier. Movie nights on the oversized sectional. The night they signed mortgage papers and celebrated with cheap champagne because they thought they were building a forever life. That was the painful thing about toxic relationships. Not every moment was terrible. If they were, nobody would stay. The good memories complicated the leaving. Lena carried another box downstairs when she heard the front door open unexpectedly. Then Brady's voice. Lena. Her body tensed automatically before she could stop it. Interesting. Trauma lived in reflexes long after logic moved on. Brady stepped into the foyer slowly. He looked thinner now, not polished anymore. The confident arrogance had eroded into exhaustion. "What are you doing here?" Lena asked carefully. "I still have keys." The sentence bothered her more than it should have. Ownership, access, entitlement. Brady looked around the half-empty house quietly. "It feels weird." Lena said nothing. He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "My father sold the lake property." She blinked once. Not because she cared about the property, because Brady sounded lost without status attached to him. And he laughed bitterly under his breath. "God, you really don't care anymore." That wasn't true. Lena cared deeply. She simply no longer cared enough to abandon herself. Brady walked slowly into the living room. "I keep thinking you'll change your mind." Lena set the box down carefully. "I won't." The certainty in her voice physically hurt him. She saw it immediately. For years, Brady relied on her emotional flexibility, her willingness to reconsider, forgive, adapt. Now she sounded final, and final terrified him. "I loved you," Brady whispered suddenly. Lena's chest tightened painfully, because part of her still believed him. In his own limited way, Brady probably did love her, but love without respect became possession eventually. "You loved being needed," Lena answered softly. Brady flinched. "That's not fair. There's that word again." He looked away immediately. Silence filled the room. Outside, leaves scraped softly across the driveway in cold autumn wind. Finally, Brady spoke again. "I never thought you'd actually leave. Honest." Again, that honesty arrived too late. Lena folded her arms loosely. "You never thought I'd choose myself." Brady's eyes filled slightly. "You make it sound like I was a monster." "No." Lena's voice softened unexpectedly. "That's what makes this sad." He looked confused. "You weren't a monster, Brady. You were just selfish enough to keep benefiting from my pain while pretending you loved me." The truth landed heavily between them, because manipulative people rarely viewed themselves as villains. They viewed themselves as justified. Brady sat slowly on the couch like his body suddenly weighed too much. "I ruined everything." Lena stared at him quietly, then answered honestly. "We both stayed too long after love stopped feeling safe." For a moment neither spoke. Then Brady whispered, "I miss you." That nearly shattered her. Not because she wanted him back, because grief and relief could coexist painfully inside the same heart. Lena looked around the half-empty house. "I miss who I thought we were." Brady lowered his head, and suddenly he looked very ordinary. Not powerful, not charming, not emotionally untouchable, just a man who realized too late that loyalty was not infinite. Her phone buzzed softly in her coat pocket. Maya Bennett. Lena stepped away to answer. "Hi." Maya's voice sounded nervous immediately. "Sorry to bother you again. You're not bothering me." A pause. "Then I asked for salary transparency yesterday." Lena's chest tightened slightly. "And they suddenly removed me from a client presentation this morning." There it was. The pattern again. Fast, efficient, punitive. Lena closed her eyes briefly. For years she believed her experience was personal failure. Now she recognized the system instantly. "Maya," she said carefully, "start documenting everything." Behind her, Brady listened silently from the living room. Maya exhaled shakily. "I'm scared." Lena looked around the house one final time. The beautiful kitchen, the staged perfection, the years she sacrificed trying to preserve appearances. Then she answered with a calm she earned painfully. "I know." A pause. "Then but fear gets smaller the moment you stop facing it alone." After the call ended, Lena turned back toward Brady. He was watching her differently now, not possessively. Sadly, like he finally understood the woman he underestimated had become someone he could no longer control. Lena picked up the final box near the staircase, then paused. "You know what the worst part was?" she asked quietly. Brady looked up slowly. "I kept thinking if I loved people hard enough, eventually they'd love me carefully back." His face crumpled. "Because some truths arrive too late to repair anything." Lena carried the final box toward the front door, and this time she didn't look back before leaving. Whitmore and Hale changed faster than anyone expected, not because it suddenly became moral, but because exposure forced evolution. Independent investigators moved through departments like quiet storms. Every interview added another layer of confirmation to what Lena already knew Nothing had been accidental. The system had been designed to reward silence and punish awareness. And now it was collapsing under the weight of its own documentation. Lena stood in a glass-walled conference room on the 41st floor during her final mediation session, not as a victim anymore, not as a complaint, as a central witness. Naomi sat beside her calm, as always, turning pages with controlled precision. Across the table, corporate leadership looked permanently changed now. Not unified, fragmented. Margaret Whitmore spoke first. "We are implementing full structural reform," she said quietly. Her voice lacked performance now. No corporate polish, no strategic framing, just reality. Pay equity audits will be mandatory. Compensation transparency will be enforced. All HR behavioral language systems will be rebuilt under external oversight. One of the executives shifted uncomfortably. "This will fundamentally alter how we operate." Naomi replied immediately. "Yes, that is the point." Silence. No one argued further, because the alternative continued exposure was no longer survivable for them. Then Margaret turned toward Lena, and something in her expression softened. "You were right," she said simply. The words hit differently than any settlement figure ever could. Not because they were powerful, because they were rare. Lena looked down for a moment. For years she imagined justice as loud, public humiliation, revenge, watching people suffer the way she had suffered. But standing here, she realized something unexpected. Justice was quieter than she expected. It was systems changing because they could no longer deny truth. Naomi placed the final agreement document forward. "This concludes Ms. Wagner's participation in Whitmore and Hale's internal proceedings." The phrase sounded final, official, clean. But Lena knew better now. Nothing about this experience had been clean, only survived. She signed. Her hand didn't shake. That realization surprised her more than anything else. When she stood to leave, Margaret spoke again softly. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry it took this long." Lena paused, then nodded once. "I know, because apology mattered less than change, and change had finally been forced into existence." Outside the building, Chicago air felt different, not lighter, just real. Naomi walked beside her toward the sidewalk. "You handled that well," she said. Lena almost laughed. "I don't feel like I handled anything. I just stopped disappearing." Naomi smiled slightly. "That's harder than it sounds." They stopped at the curb while traffic moved steadily past. For a moment neither spoke. Then Naomi asked gently, "What now?" Lena looked at the city skyline. The same city where she once believed success meant endurance. Now it looked different, less like a hierarchy, more like possibility. "I don't know yet," she admitted, and for the first time that uncertainty didn't feel like failure. It felt like space. 6 weeks later, Lena stood in a smaller office downtown. Not corporate glass tower, not luxury branding. A modest consulting space filled with natural light and whiteboards covered in notes. On the wall behind her hung a new sign, Wagner Equity Consulting. She still wasn't used to the name. It felt strange seeing her identity separated from survival. Maya Bennett sat across from her reviewing onboarding documents. "I still can't believe this is real," Maya said quietly. Lena smiled faintly. "It's real." Maya hesitated. "Do you ever think about him?" Lena knew immediately who she meant. Brady. For a moment she considered lying, but there was no point anymore. "Yes," she said honestly. Maya looked surprised. Still, Lena leaned back slightly. "Not the way people think." She paused. "I don't miss the relationship. I miss the version of me that believed love meant endurance." Maya nodded slowly, like she understood more than she said. Outside the window, the city moved forward without asking permission. That thought stayed with Lena. Permission. How many years had she waited for it to speak, to leave, to demand fairness, to choose herself? Now she understood something simpler. Permission had never been real. It had only been something people gave you when they wanted you to stay small. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then answered. "Hello?" A familiar silence, then Brady's voice. "Lena." Her body didn't react anymore, no tightening chest, no emotional spike, just recognition. "What do you want?" A pause. Then softer than she remembered, "I heard about your company." She didn't respond. Brady continued. "People are saying, you helped other women." Lena looked out the window. "I did." Another silence. Then I lost a lot because of this. That sentence almost made her smile, because he still framed it as loss happening to him, not consequences arriving. I know, she said simply. Brady exhaled shakily. I didn't think it would go this far. Of course he didn't. Men like Brady rarely thought past their own comfort. I did, Lena replied calmly. Silence stretched. Then he whispered, I miss you. For a moment, Lena let herself feel that sentence fully, not emotionally, but objectively. What he missed wasn't her wholeness, it was her availability, her forgiveness, her emotional labor, her willingness to soften consequences for him. I know, she said again, then added something new. But I don't miss who I was with you. That silence on the other end felt different. He wasn't prepared for that version of her. I made mistakes, Brady said again. Still there, still unfinished. Lena nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see her. I know. Then she ended the call. No shaking hands, no emotional collapse, just closure. Maya watched her carefully from across the desk. Was that him? Yes. What did he want? Lena looked down at the documents in front of her. Then back up. To go back. Maya frowned slightly, and Lena smiled faintly. I think he finally understands I'm not available anymore. Later that evening, Lena walked alone along the river. Wind moved through the city gently now, not harsh like before. Inside her mind, memories still existed, but they no longer directed her decisions. They simply passed through, like weather. She stopped near the water and watched reflections of city lights ripple across the surface. 5 years ago, she would have called this moment loneliness. Now she recognized it as freedom. Her phone buzzed one final time. Naomi. A message. You built something important. Don't forget that. Lena stared at it for a long time, then typed back, I stopped asking permission. She put her phone away and continued walking. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was surviving anything. She felt like she was living it, not carefully, not quietly, but fully. Sometimes the most painful truth in life is not that people betray us, it's that we often stay long enough to learn exactly how they do it. Lena's story is not just about workplace discrimination or a broken marriage. It is about something deeper, the slow erosion of self-worth that happens when someone repeatedly teaches you that your voice is too much, your emotions are too sensitive, and your needs are inconvenient. Over time, you stop asking whether something is right or wrong. You start asking whether you are allowed to feel it at all. But healing begins the moment that question changes. Lena didn't become strong because she was never broken. She became strong because she stopped negotiating with people who benefited from her silence. And that is a transformation many people never reach, not because they are weak, but because they are taught that endurance is love and sacrifice is virtue. The hardest truth she learned is that kindness without boundaries is not a gift to others. It becomes permission for them to take more. Real empowerment is not loud. It is not revenge. It is not even victory in the traditional sense. It is the quiet decision to stop abandoning yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. The moment Lena stopped asking, how do I make them understand me, and started asking, why am I still trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding me, everything changed. Life doesn't always give clean justice, but it always gives clarity if we survive long enough to see it, and clarity is sometimes the most powerful form of freedom. If this story made you reflect on your own boundaries, your own relationships or moments where you stayed too long in something that was slowly hurting you, take a second to sit with that feeling. You are not alone in it, and you are not the only one who has ever had to learn self-respect the hard way. If you enjoyed this emotional story, share your thoughts in the comments. What moment hit you the hardest and why? I'd genuinely love to hear your perspective. And if you want more cinematic emotional storytelling like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories about betrayal, healing, and self-discovery.